This set of notes is cellular respiration. So in cellular respiration, this is going to happen in the mitochondria of both plants and animals. You're going to take the glucose from photosynthesis and you're going to go through some steps and you're going to end up making CO2, H2O, and ATP, which is that energy. So these are the steps: glycolysis, and then it can take two turns into aerobic, which is with oxygen, or anaerobic, which is without oxygen, otherwise called fermentation. So the overview. Cellular respiration occurs in the mitochondria. That's the powerhouse of the cell. It burns glucose, which is food, for energy. The chemical equation is C6H12O6 plus 6O2 gives you 6CO2 plus 6H2O. If you remember, this is the exact opposite equation that we just did for photosynthesis. All you do is change the arrow. There's 3 stages in cellular respiration. The first is glycolysis. This is anaerobic, meaning that it does not require oxygen to go through. It occurs in the cytoplasm. It uses 2 ATP, so it takes 2 ATP to go through this process for the energy, and it produces 4 ATP, so there's a net gain of 2. It splits glucose, C6H12O6, into 2 equal molecules, which are called pyruvic acid, C3H6O3. Okay, so it just splits it right in half where it's more usable. The second stage is the citric acid cycle. This is aerobic. You have to have oxygen. It occurs in the mitochondrial matrix. It produces 2 ATP, and it also produces NADH and FADH2 for electron transport chain, which is the next cycle. This is also aerobic, meaning that it does have to have oxygen. It occurs in the mitochondrial on the inner membrane. That's called the cristae. Remember, the more folds, the more surface area, the more surface area, the more reaction, the more reaction, the more ATP you can make. It's going to produce 32 to 34 ATP per glucose molecule. That's a lot of energy. So this is the cellular respiration that's aerobic. So the glucose comes in, it goes through glycolysis, splits it into 2 pyruvic acid. That pyruvic acid then goes into the mitochondria. CO2 comes out, that's one of the byproducts, and it makes acetylcholase A, and then that goes through the citric acid cycle, producing more CO2, more ATP. That goes through the electron transport chain, which eventually makes 32 to 34 ATPs. There's also the anaerobic respiration. This is another pathway that does not use oxygen to make that ATP. So if you look at this chart, the lactic acid formation and the alcoholic fermentation are both anaerobic, meaning they do not require oxygen. The lactic acid builds up lactic acid in your muscles. It makes your muscles sore, so you've all experienced this at some point. It only makes 6 to 8 ATP as it goes through this. This is going to happen in muscle cells of all animals. Alcoholic fermentation produces ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide. It makes, again, only 6 to 8 ATPs, and this is going to happen in yeast cells. Respiration, cellular respiration, is aerobic, meaning it requires oxygen. The waste products, or the products that are released, are CO2 and water, and it makes a whole lot more ATP, 36 to 38. And this is going to happen in all cells, both plants and animals. So if we look at photosynthesis and respiration, photosynthesis, food was made. Respiration, the food is broken down, food being glucose. Photosynthesis, energy is stored. Respiration, energy is being released. Photosynthesis, the reactants are CO2 and water, and in respiration, the reactants are C6H12O6 and O2. You can see the products are exactly opposite of each other. In photosynthesis, light is needed. Respiration, you don't need any light. And photosynthesis is all cells with chloroplasts, which are autotrophs, plants, and all cells, heterotroph and autotroph, go through respiration.